Hey guys, we're back at it with math here today. It's Tuesday. If you're watching on the assignments when they're assigned, I'm going to go over some of the work you had from yesterday. The first assignment was to complete numbers 1 through 7, starting on page 384 and then over to 385. We're going to go through all those and then get you set up for a little more practice. So this is just a chance to review. Yesterday we did number 1 together. I'm glad we did because that has a situation that we're going to see pop up, I think, in all these other ones, 2, 3, and 4. Where when we originally add our fraction amounts, we got a fraction 23/20ths. And in order to put that into simplest form, we had to go through this process of like taking out a whole number. Again, this is called an improper fraction. It's mean not proper. It's not the way we want it to be. We don't want that numerator to be bigger than the denominator. So the way we can rearrange that or rewrite that or put it into a better form or a simplest form is to take out a whole part. In this case, 20/20ths is equal to 1 whole. And then we'd have 3/20ths still left. And then this 3/20ths, that's a good fraction. That's where we have a smaller numerator than our denominator. So 23/20ths we said is equal to 1 3/20ths. And then if we already had 11 whole parts, we can add 1 to it. So 11 plus 1 more makes 12. And then we again have that 3/20ths that we like. Okay. So I kind of want to go over that just to begin. And we are going to see that pop up in these 2, 3, and 4 numbers when we're adding these up. Okay, so it's a good thing to kind of get used to. All right, so let's go ahead and continue on. Again, hopefully you've already got these done from yesterday. And now we're just going to go over them and we'll check up and see, make sure we're all good. I kind of set these up ahead of time to save us a little bit of time. With all of these, again, those whole parts aren't going to change, but the fractions we need to change to make sure we have common denominators so that we can add those up. So for each one, we'll keep the whole part and then put them into common denominators for our fractions, equivalent fractions with common denominators, then add and then put them into simplest form. So it's a nice step-by-step process to help us master this skill. And again, this is like our big goal for our fraction work as far as coming up to the end of the year here. So let's go ahead and do that. So 2 3/4 plus 3 3/10 is what we're going to do here. So again, that 2 whole is going to stay, 3 whole is going to stay. Now again, common denominators here, 4 and 10 we could multiply together and get 40, but there's a smaller common denominator, or a least common denominator, I mean the lowest amount, that we can use, which would be 20. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. If you did 40, that's awesome. It'll work out and you'll get the same final answer as I do, except you will have to go through the step of putting it into simplest form. Okay, so that might be an extra thing where you can reduce the fraction amount. But here we go. Let's check this out. Okay, so again, just to review, notice that a lot of what we did with the big part of setting this up is the work we've already learned how to do in the last lesson. So we're building that skill and still using those abilities. But if I go from fourths to 20ths, 4 times 5 makes 20. So we have to continue on with that. 3, do the same for our numerator. 3 times 5 would be 15. So I have 15/20ths that's equal to 3/4. And down here for my tenths, 10 times 2 would make 20, so it would get me to tenths to 20ths. And then again, to make an equivalent fraction, do the same thing up top. So 10 times 2 makes 20. So then I have to do 3 times 2 to make my numerator work out, which would be 3 times 2 is, of course, 6. Okay, now we're ready to add. We're going to add our fraction parts up. 15 plus 6/20ths is going to give us 15 plus 6 would be 21. And again, remember that 20ths is going to stay the same. And again, the whole parts we add, super easy, right? 2 plus 3 would make 5 whole. So we get 5 and 21/20ths. But again, we don't want to give our answer like that. We want to take this 21/20ths, and if we have more than 20, that means we have more than a whole part. Like we have a whole circle filled in, 20/20ths plus 1/20th would be left over. Okay, so what we can do, again, I'll kind of write this out to help us think of it, but we can kind of rewrite this as, if we think of 20/20ths would be equal to 1 whole, and then we'd still need to add to make it equal to 21, we'd have 1/20th left over. And then what I can do is say, okay, I'm going to change this 20/20ths I know is equal to 1 whole, so I'm just going to change it to that. Okay, so 20/20ths would be 1 whole. And again, to make it 21/20ths, would be have 1 whole plus 1/20th left over. So we have 5 plus 1/20th. 1 and 1/20. 5 plus 1 would be 6. So here's my final answer. I think it's 6 and 1/20. Now again, after we do this a few times, you'll catch on. You might remember doing this in 4th grade. But this is going to be our answer in simplest form. Okay, so if we have that improper fraction, we want to take it and make it kind of into a whole part with an extra fraction left over. Okay, so we're going to get to this for our final answer. So after we take care of all that, we have 6 and 1/20 as a final answer there. Okay, so again, as we go through, we'll be able to go through it quicker, but it's just good just to early on to go slow through it to show you, so we can take that whole part plus the leftover, but we'll start to be able to do that in our heads after a little bit. Okay, all right, let's keep going. Let's see, I'll do a dark blue color for the next one. 5 3/4 plus 1 1/3 is our next problem. Again, whole parts stay the same. You can just go ahead and fill those in. 5 and 1. 4 and 3 for our common denominator. In this case, multiplying the denominators also gives us the least common denominator, which is going to be 12ths. So we're going to use 12ths here. And again, let's work on that equivalent fraction. 4 times 3 gives us 12. So the numerator, 3 times 3 would give us 9/12. That's equal to 3/4. Then 3 times 4 would give us 12. So 1 times 4 would give us 4/12 equal to 1/3. Okay, then again, let's add up. Now we've got common denominators, so I'm ready to add. And I can add my numerators. 9 plus 4 is 13/12, because the denominator stays the same. And then, of course, my whole part, 5 whole parts plus 1 more whole part would be 6. Now, again, we get 6 and 13/12, but we don't want to give our answer as that. When we have an improper fraction, think if I take out a whole part, in this case, how many whole parts would be 12ths? 12/12, right? When the numerator and denominator are the same, it's like we filled in all the pieces of the pie. That's how we can do that. So we can take out 12/12, and then if I started with 13, I took out 12, I'd have 1 left over. So I can think of this as 6 plus this would be equal to 1 and 1/12. Let's write this out again so we can see. 1 and 1/12. And if I add in my whole part, now I've got an extra whole part to add in. So my final answer here is going to be 7. And then we have this 1/12 fraction left over. Okay. So again, I'm still kind of going slow through that just to make sure we're all getting it. 7 and 1/12 will be our final answer here. Okay. All right. So you notice it takes a little space, so I kind of spread things out. If you need to do some of this on extra paper, you can. And in fact, the homework you're going to have, or the work you're going to have today, is going to be one where you'll need to do that on extra paper. So all okay. It's better to spread things out. I talked to a couple kids on Zoom, and their parents were like telling them, you need to take, it's okay to use plenty of space to make sure you have everything easy to see. We don't have to squeeze it all into one area. If you ever run out of room in the book because there's just not enough room, just do it on some extra paper. All right, good. Let's go on. Let's pick another fun color. How about orange? Why not? I guess that's not super fun, but anyway, I don't have too many options here. All right, we're going to keep our whole number the same. We're doing 3 4/5 plus 2 3/10, so the wholes stay the same. 3, 2. Let's talk about common denominators. We have fifths and tenths. In this case, we can use tenths as our common denominator, and again, that's always good to do if you can. If you can get one denominator over to the other, that means the one you don't change here can stay the same. So 3/10 is still 3/10. So that's good, saves us a little time. Then let's think, okay, from 5 to 10, we go 5 times 2 makes 10. So then 4 times 2 would give us 8/10 there. All right, now let's go ahead and add them up. We're going to add the fraction parts. 8 plus 3 would make 11, and then, of course, the denominator stays the same. So again, notice that's an improper fraction, so think about right now, how are we going to change that? 3 plus 2, don't forget your whole numbers, though, 5. So we get 5 and 11/10, but to give it in the best way we can, we're going to need to take out another whole part, okay? So think about this. If we have 11/10, how much would be one whole? Would be 10/10. Then we need one more to make 11. So 11/10 is the same as 1 and 1/10. So then if we have one extra whole part we've taken out, again, I'll just write over here. We have to add in the 5. We're going to say our final answer to all this, we would have 5 here plus the 1 extra would make 6. And then we've got this 1/10 left, okay? So here's the final answer for this one. Again, in all these cases, we're already in simplest form once we take care of that improper fraction, okay? So that's what will happen sometimes when we're adding these fractions up. When we subtract, though, we don't usually have that problem where we have to change our improper fractions to mixed numbers. Now on the next page, page 385, we have some subtraction to do. So again, shift gears into that. Same process, though. So again, I got these set up a little bit ahead of time to save us some time in the video. But now we're going to subtract. Again, got to find a common denominator, then subtract, and then put in simplest form. So let's see if there's any simplifying we have to do with these. Okay, as we've seen, again, the whole numbers can stay the same. So we'll have 9 and 5, 6 is going to stay 9 whole. 2 and 1/3 stays 2 whole. Now again, notice between 3 and 6, I can get from my 3 up to 6, so I can keep sixths as our common denominator, which saves me some time. I got 5/6 here. So I just need to change my thirds into sixths. So 1/3 would be, okay, 3 times 2, I would have to multiply by 2 to get to 6. So 1 times 2 would give me 2/6 equal to 1/3. Okay, now again, we're subtracting. So when we do that, we're going to subtract our numerators. 5 minus 2 would be 3/6. 9 minus 2 would be 7 whole parts. Now again, the last thing is to check that fraction and see. Some of you might be catching on. You'll start to see as the more we get used to them, the more we get comfortable with them, you'll see them right away. 3/6 would be equal to 1/2. Okay, so our final answer here would be 7 and 1/2. We can divide each by 3. And again, you might think, oh, I know that 3 is half of 6. Yeah, that's exactly it. So 7 and 1/2 is going to be our final simplest form answer there. Okay. All right, let's keep going. Same thing here. We're going to go 10 and 5/9 minus 9 and 1/6. Keep our whole parts the same. And let me make that 0 better. And then 9 and 1/6. 9. 9 and 6 can be a little hard as we can multiply to make 54. The least common denominator, though, again, if we start to list out the multiples, would be 18. So I'm going to choose that for this one, and hopefully, again, that'll save us a little time in the end if we need to. If you did 54, that's great, but it is a little hard to simplify, and you will have to simplify it if you do it that way. But let's see how things turn out with this one. So if I use 18, so okay, just again, same thing. 9 times 2 would make 18, so 5 times 2 would make 10. 10/18 equal to 5/9. 6 times 3 would make 18, so 1 times 3 would make 3, of course. 3/18 equal to 1/6. Now we're ready to subtract. 10 minus 3 makes 7, and it stays 18ths, of course. The denominator stays the same. And 10 minus 9 is 1. And we get 1 and 7/18. And hey, all right, that's in simplest form. Finally, we got one we didn't have to do much with at the end. Every now and then the book is nice to you and they actually give you a little break. So enjoy that. Lucky you. All right. Great stuff. Let's do one more and then I'll let you guys get to work on the rest of the things you have for today. 7 and 2/3 minus 3 and 1/6. Let's change to purple because that's super fun. 7 and 2/3. Again, our whole numbers stay the same. 3, 7 and 3. Again, in this case, we can change our one fraction to match up with another. 3 and 6, our least common denominator can be 6, which is nice because I can keep this 1/6. And then 3 can make into 6 thirds to 6. 3 times 2 makes 6. So then 2 times 2 makes 4. And then we're ready to go. So 4/6 equal to 2/3. Now again, subtract your fraction parts. Here we see 3/6 again. So hopefully you're already thinking, oh, I know what that simplifies to. But don't forget about the whole numbers. 7 minus 3 leaves us 4 whole parts. And then, okay, again, to put into simplest form, hopefully you see 3 is half of 6, and we'll start to see those things automatically. Just like we learn our math facts, we can learn our simplifying fractions of things we can do. So we have 4 whole parts, and then, of course, 3/6 equal to 1/2. Okay, we did it. Awesome. Okay, good job today. That takes us through, again, what you covered yesterday, and now it's kind of going to be the same thing. It just says on your own here, we're going to find the sum or difference, write your answer in simplest form. So kind of pay attention to those same things. Think about common denominators. You have just these ones, 8 through 13 for today. My next video, I'll go over that. So good luck on this. Just a little more practice for today. The same kind of stuff. Watch out for taking those improper fractions and putting them back into mixed numbers and then adding on to the whole parts you already have. Like I said, my next video, I'll go over these ones with you and we'll keep moving right along, okay? I hope you're doing all right this week. Again, miss you guys a lot. Hope you're enjoying everything going on. Just a little bit of time left, covering some big time skills. And that's my video for today. And again, the next one I'll go over these, and then we'll keep trucking right along. All right, thanks guys for your work. Hope you're doing well, and I'll see you later.